In this last video, we're going to talk about using Solver. Solver is a sort of an amped up version of GoalSeek, allowing you to change multiple cells until a certain cell reaches a certain value, or a maximum value, or a minimum value. You can also, with Solver, add constraints to keep the solver within something that's going to be reasonable. So in this example, we have some production costs, and we're going to have changes made with the production costs and the extra costs. And we're going to have some constraints to keep these within certain values. Now, I put these down here just to show you what we're doing. They're not necessary to have this listed while using Solver. So we'll click on the Solver icon. And the first thing we want to do is set our objective. So our objective is going to be E14. And this one, we want it to hit our goal. Our target or goal budget should not exceed $65,000. So that's what we're going to be having the solver do. So 65,000. So now we're going to change some cells. The first one is going to be B5 through B13. Now we're going to do a comma to do a second, and then we can also change the extra costs. So we'll change those. So if we just let it do the solver, it would hit something. Let's see what it does. And you'll see how it made some changes, but there are some constraints that have been given to you from management. So we're just going to tell it to do a restore to original values. So we'll go back to Solver. Similarly to Scenario Manager, Solver is also attached to the worksheet. So if you had multiple solvers on multiple worksheets, they would be independent of one another. So even though I didn't finish this, or I want to go back and make some changes to it, it's still viable. So we're going to add some constraints. The first constraint is that the total project or total cost for each project cannot exceed $9,600. So that's going to be this value. So we're going to select those values less than or equal to $9,600. We'll just click add. The extra cost should not exceed $1,000. So the extra costs are D5 through D13. And that will be less than or equal to $1,000. We're going to add it. And we want to make sure that some of our changes are integers. So we're going to select that group, and we're going to make it integer, and we'll add it. And the other one is the extra costs should also remain as integers. And then we can click OK. And so you can see we have four constraints. Now you'll notice that it says fixed costs need to remain at $2,000. That really didn't play any part because it's already at $2,000. That's just telling us that we can't make changes there. So at this point, we could do a load or save to use this later. So we'll click that. And we're going to tell it where to save it. So we'll just save it in A22, and then we'll save. And then we'll just solve it. Takes a moment. You'll see that it hit our goal of $65,000 by making changes to all of these. We're going to keep the solution, and we'll tell it to create an answer sheet or an answer report. And we'll click OK. And then this is our answer report that really just reiterates our the variables we're changing, how it changed it, what they were originally and what our final values were, any constraints, that kind of stuff. So we could go back to Solver and we could make other changes. Well, what if we want to have a goal of $7,500 with the same constraints? So we'll just load and save this. You don't actually have to save it, but it's a nice way of bringing them back if you want to use them. And we'll click solve, and so we'll see what happens. and it made a variety of changes. We'll just keep those solutions. If we go back to Solver, and we'll keep it at 75,000, but what if the extra cost that we put here, what if we can change that to, let's say, 1,500? And then we'll say OK. So we're just making different changes, and we'll solve it. And you can see that it's still stuck with that. It just happened to be the best solution for this. So we'll just click OK. So you can make a variety of changes. You can save your solver. So if I wanted to go back to the original, I could go to Solver, Load and Save, and I could select those, and I could tell it to load it. It says, well, I already have some constraints to what do you want me to do with them. I'm just going to have me replace it. And this should bring us back to the way it was, the first solution. There we go. And we can say OK. Now, changes were made because we actually had our, oh, actually, I think I had, no, it does still have the $65,000. So that is working with Solver to do kind of an amped up version of GoalSeek.